Well, the committee keeps coming out with new rankings on Tuesday, and they really kind of keep getting it wrong.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson with the AHSA Radio Network, that's me, and Jimmy Stein with Bama Online, that's him. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel, and we'll talk about FanDuel in just a bit. Thank you, everydayers, for joining us every day, and thank you, newbies, for joining us today. Jimmy, the new rankings are out. And look, this really is just manufactured angst, right? I mean, because this shouldn't matter much. But we're so hungry. We're a nation that loves to rank things. We actually have there's a website called Ranker. And I think people love to get a little bit upset about that, including me. And I'm looking at these rankings. I'm still seeing Indiana.
What do they do at Ranker?
They rank stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds like a Tinder thing.
There probably is some Tinder stuff in there. I don't know. I hadn't been there. Wink. Anyway.
Wink.
I'm glad
is that a thing?
I'm just glad my wife didn't watch this. Okay. Anyway, so Indiana's still at 5, which, Penn State at 4. I'm like, guys, I don't understand why it's so hard to say these folks haven't played anybody. And yes, they have fewer losses than some of these other teams. But there was a great analogy on Twitter by somebody that just I'm going to try. Let me try and find it actually, because it was so good that I was going to say it's so good that I retweeted it. Like, whoa,
you
don't go crazy, Luke.
The stamp of approval that
Yeah.
a retweet is in this modern day and age.
Is from Roddy Nabulsi, Nabulsi. He says, I love the, quote, well, just win your games, unquote, argument by folks who ignore strength of schedule. He said, let's have a 100-meter race. I'll run downhill, you run up a steep hill. The person with the fastest time wins. Just win your race, you morons. I love that. I thought that was great.
No, and it's a great analogy because that's one of the few analogies out there that's completely correct. Everything has to be given context, and one-loss records certainly have to be given context. Again, the same people that want to prop up Indiana for being undefeated with their schedule, and they say, well, Indiana's undefeated. You can't. Then I say, then why aren't you doing the same for Army? Then why isn't Army number 4 or number 5 or right behind Indiana or even ahead of Indiana or number 2 behind Oregon? You know why? Because Army's played a terrible schedule. So why does that matter for Army and it doesn't matter for Indiana? So everything needs context. I just saw a stat earlier today. I was looking at Alabama's defensive yards per play. And this is great because it's one of my favorite stats. Defensive yards per play. How many yards do you give up on an average snap basis? Alabama is actually 10th in the country, which is outstanding. So I would argue that might be the preeminent defensive stat out there in terms of if you can name one stat on defense, what stat tells you the most? I would argue it might be that one. So, but here's what that doesn't take into context, Luke. Alabama's played the 16th toughest schedule in the whole country, the second hardest schedule amongst the teams that are contending for a playoff spot. To say Alabama's 10th in the country isn't a real accurate look at that because Alabama's played a tougher schedule to get to that number 10 spot than the 9 teams ahead of them. So Alabama's done that against a really tough schedule. That stat's not opponent adjusted. So you've got to take into account who you've played. And I will say this, not defending the committee, I do think last night's rankings were better. I thought strength of schedule was, to my eye, more of a factor in last night's rankings than the previous 2 sets of rankings. It's not enough. I still have complaints, but I do think that they heard even Nick Saban say on game day last Saturday that, look, the committee's not factoring strength of schedule enough into the equation here.
Yeah, and here's the other thing to look at. Alabama's final 2 games, probably, outside of Mercer, really only outside of Mercer and maybe Western Kentucky, the final 2 games are against Auburn and Oklahoma, who happen to be probably 2 of the weaker teams on Alabama's schedule this year, but are historically top 15, top 16 teams in the country. So when your weaker 2 opponents, 2 of your weaker opponents, I should say, are Oklahoma and Auburn, your schedule is unbelievable.
Yeah, I don't think Alabama's schedule ranking is going to go down. I mean, they're 16th right now. I don't think Oklahoma and Auburn will drag it down. They're not going to boost it up, but I think they'll hover around that 16 area, my guess is, after the next 2 weeks, because Oklahoma and Auburn in the deep rankings, and by that I ain't talking about the top 25 and about how you rank 134 teams. Oklahoma and Auburn aren't in the 120s or the 100s or even the 90s. I mean, they're kind of a mid-range team when you look at all 133 teams.
And, we should say the committee did do something right, in my opinion. They bumped Alabama up to 7. I would say they need to be no lower than 7. I mean, if they were 6, I would get it. I don't know if you can put them a ton higher than that. But I think that having them at 7 is fair. It's just things like Indiana at 5 and Penn State at 4 that we keep complaining about.
Or Notre Dame at 6.
Notre Dame at 6. I mean, again, Notre Dame has the worst loss of anybody in the field with Northern Illinois. They've only won like 3 or 4 games.
What's their second best win? I know their best win's over A&M, and that's awesome. That's a playoff, especially beating A&M in College Station. That is a playoff worthy win, gold star, no doubt.
And I won't even put a caveat of, hey, they played them first game of the year. If they played now, I feel like Texas A&M wins that game, but
maybe so. But what's their second best win? I don't even know. And if you tell me it's Navy, I'm going to say, okay, you just made my point.
No, it's not Navy. It's probably Louisville, who just gave up a 14-point lead with minutes to go at Stanford in front of 7 people.
I think Louisville has 4 losses now.
Yeah, Louisville does have 4 losses, I believe. And, Notre Dame, beat them 31-24. Ironically, Notre Dame also beat Stanford 49-7. But, beating Florida State, and this isn't necessarily their fault, but, Florida State's terrible.
Scheduling's not necessarily anyone's fault. I don't think it's Indiana's fault that their Big Ten schedule is so bad.
No, I do.
Their Big Ten schedule?
Not their Big Ten schedule, but the other 3, you're telling me they couldn't schedule, I don't know, practically anybody other than what they scheduled? They scheduled a bunch of airports.
I'm stealing this from Josh Pate, but if you look at Indiana's schedule, this is no different than a group of 5, than arguing about a group of 5 team, because they have a literal group of 5 schedule. I mean, like in terms of the difficulty, lower level group of 5. And we're talking about, does undefeated Nevada deserve a spot in the playoff in 2012 or 2017? Or that Central Florida situation back then. I bet if we look back, Luke, I bet that 2017 Central Florida team that went undefeated and claimed they were national champions, they may have played a tougher schedule than this Indiana team so far. But I think the biggest news for Alabama, and I think a lot of people have missed this, and I know it was my first take. I've always said, and I think most people listening have said, hey, if you're the top 8 seed, you're going to either have a bye or host. So being a top 8 seed is a big deal. And Alabama was number 7 last night. So is Alabama hosting? No. If those were the final rankings, Alabama's number 7 and not even hosting. They would play on the road in the first round. And you're like, how is that possible? Due to yet another flaw or bug in this system. 2 teams behind Alabama are projected conference champions and would thus have the bye, thus knocking Alabama from a rank of 7 but to a seeding of 9, and Alabama would be on the road. Again, I find this, I'm not outraged. I don't think that's crazy, but I think it's something we need to think through. Like, is this the best idea that now you're saying, hey, you're the 7th best team in the country, but you have to hit the road? Because these teams that we're ranking outside of the top 12 are going to get seeds or outside of the top 10 are going to get a top 4 seeds and a bye. So I'm not sure this is the system we need, but I'm the first to say that this is all very complex.
Yeah. And again, it's all going to change, and it's all going to change after this weekend. All this stuff will probably resolve itself. Let's just see. Joey Galloway had the dumbest comment I think I've ever heard somebody have, and I just listened to him at the Alabama touchdown, Birmingham touchdown club, or I can't remember what it's called. I'm sorry. I know the guy that invited me. God, what's the name of it? It doesn't matter. Anyway, Joey Galloway was there, and I didn't think he was necessarily great at explaining anything while he was there. He was there via Zoom, but he had one of the worst comments I think I've heard anybody say. He said, Indiana ought to sit their starting quarterback for this weekend's game. I mean, just easy stomach. I mean, I don't know how you can even fathom
I guess it was his point, and he lost me. And was his point that Florida State wasn't invited to last year's playoff because their starting quarterback got hurt. Otherwise, they would have been in the playoff.
I think that's what his point is, but
that misses everything that happened last year by a whole mile.
It does, but that's okay. We're going to get to Mint Mobile here. That's right. You heard me. Mint Mobile. I love a great deal as much as the next guy, but I'm not going to crawl through a bed of hot coals just to save a few bucks. I mean, I might, but I probably won't. It has to be easy. No hoops, no BS. So when Mint Mobile said it was easy to get wireless for $15 a month with the purchase of a 3-month plan, I called them out. You know what? Turns out it really is that easy to get wireless for $15 a month. The longest part of the process was the time I spent on hold waiting to break up with my old provider. To get started, go to mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. There you'll see all this right now. All 3-month plans are only $15 a month, including the unlimited plan. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with your existing contacts. Find out how easy it is to switch to Mint Mobile when you go to mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. That's mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. I know I didn't read that great. It's not written great. Sorry about that. I'm reading verbatim here. Now I'm going to tell you about Academy. Jimmy and I were at Academy. You were at Academy. You probably came and saw us, and we appreciate you. We hope you did. Go over to Academy right now. They got everything you need, anything you want. Sports-wise, camping-wise, hunting-wise, fishing-wise, all that stuff-wise, they got it. And it's so convenient. Right off 280. Look, it's 4610 Highway US 280, and it's right there where the Best Buy was. You know where it is. It's right there where that Best Buy was in the Target Shopping Center, behind that Chick-fil-A. Everybody knows where that Chick-fil-A is on 280. And so you want to go to Target, you can go to Target too while you're there, but you really want to go to Academy first. You can get better deals. So go to Academy and go get you everything you need for hunting, fishing, having fun, camping, hanging out, basketballing, footballing, tailgating. They got it all over at Academy. That's at 4610 US Highway 280. Academy is where it's at, bro. I know it's impossible to tell, but I completely ad-libbed my Academy live read because I didn't have my notes up, and so I just had to do what I could.
Oh, normally my favorite part's when you go through the brands that are there, because I'm literally like a fan of every brand. I mean, when it sounds like I'm like Yeti, Shimano.
Yeah. And then I just went completely blank and had to do what I could. So
I got some
sorry about that.
But cups last time I was there, and they're fantastic. I use them all the time.
You knew what kind of live reader I was when you hired me. Anyway, all right.
Nate said you were a high quality live reader, by the way. That's the ultimate stamp of approval.
All right. I put some things up on the big board here on the right. Yep. And meanwhile, as we were doing this podcast, literally, Tim Watts has put out there that Michigan is making a big time push for Ty Haywood in the NIL stratosphere here. And so, will he stick? Will he won't stick? I don't know. He apparently grew up an Alabama fan. I think he was at one time committed to Oklahoma. He flipped to Alabama. Alabama's got an incredible offensive line class. I want Ty Haywood in this class.
Oh, yeah.
But if Michigan's coming at him with some ginormous offer and Alabama wants to be smart about this, I think Alabama will say, we understand and we hate it. We'd love to have you, but we understand. But I hope that he sticks with Alabama. Do you know anything extra?
No, I just know that I 100% expected multiple Alabama players to be what amounts to assaulted with late big NIL offers. That's how recruiting works. And this is just what we have to expect as recruiting fans. And it's going to be a queasy ride if you live and die with it. Ty Haywood is an outstanding prospect that we know Alabama would love to have. People just have to trust Kalen DeBoer and Courtney Morgan to make smart decisions about the roster. And I know there are some fans that no matter what, they're like, pay him anything he wants. That's a terrible, terrible, terrible way to approach recruiting and NIL and roster building. Because again, in my opinion, and I believe this is an opinion shared by people like Kalen DeBoer and Nick Saban, if you would like the ultimate, stamp of approval, I think I've said that 3 times in the show. If you're going to pay Ty Haywood, you can't pay Ty Haywood more money than you're paying your starters. If Parker Brailsford is going to be Alabama's best offensive lineman next year, or Jaden Roberts, they can't be making less money than Ty Haywood. So if you're going to bump up a kid that's coming in and you're paying him all this money, you got to bump up everybody's paying the whole offensive line room. You just can't operate your roster that way. It's got to be in a common sense way to keep everyone, I would say happy, but treated fairly. And in the NFL, the veterans got so upset about what was happening with the rookies making so much money. Even NFL veterans stepped in and said, you have to end this paying the rookies so much money nonsense. It's nonsense. Pay them less and pay us more. And the world has made more sense ever since the NFLPA and NFL agreed to that rule.
Yeah, and it would be a shame, and you hate it, and you really hope that, I don't know if Alabama would even try and fill that spot with a youngster or the high school kid, or maybe hit the portal. And
this is the late to add quality names. I mean, you'd have to kind of do the same thing. I mean, where you'd raid somebody else, and probably.
But then you overpay yourself. You overpay anyway. So what's the point?
That's exactly right. You can't do that. So, they would have some contacts out there. I remember because of the portal, recruiting's never over. You lose a Ty Haywood, you could go get someone in the portal perhaps, and realize that, hey, you've already got Michael Carroll, you got Jackson Lloyd, you got Micah DeBose. It ain't like the offensive line situation is terrible without Ty, but I'm sure Alabama's going to do everything they can within reason to keep Ty Haywood as part of the class.
Yeah, I hope that they do, and I hope that he sticks. Michigan's also making a big push for Bryce Underwood, of course. That would take somebody from LSU. I'd like to see somebody else's class get rated, frankly. But speaking of Michael Carroll, he visited Colorado. It's looking more and more like he's going to stick with Bama. He's going to be here for the Iron Bowl. Keanu Coote is in the transfer portal. This is no surprise. I hate it in the sense that depth is a slight issue right now. I don't hate it in the sense that he really would. Let's not paint a pretty picture. He wasn't contributing much. So it's not the end of the world. But here's the thing. We still have 2 more regular season games, a potential SEC title game, and potentially, 3 to 4 games after that.
Yeah, if this kid had kept his head down, if he had been working really hard and trying all he can to get on the field and being a great teammate and all that stuff, Alabama could really use him because of the depth situation there. Whether he would be the starter, I don't know. I mean, I think with Keanu, I'm guessing, this is a guess on my part, but, even Q Robinson didn't start the season first team at Wolf. I mean, the first team day one, first snap guy at that position this year is Quay Russaw, the freshman, redshirt freshman. Quay Russaw was the starter at that position in the first game. And then obviously he shares that spot with Q Robinson. But ever since that happened, I'm sure Keanu Coote's been like, well, I'm never going to play here. I mean, the freshman leapfrogged me, and I'm never going to play. And I'm sure whatever downhill, spiral began with that. And but it's a shame because as we know now, Q Robinson's hurt, and Alabama could use a veteran presence outside. And that kid does have a lot of ability. I mean, he's physically a gifted kid. I'm not going to be surprised if he smartly chooses his next program. If he's a significant player, it wouldn't surprise me. But if he goes to Georgia or Texas or Ohio State, I don't know that we'll see much of it. But if he goes to the right school, the right place where he can step in and play, I mean, I give credit all the time to Eli Holstein. Great job of picking the right program to get on the field. If you want to play, he picked a place he can play. Too many of these kids in the portal don't do that. Too many of them are just chasing money, and they end up going and sitting on the bench somewhere else.
Love us a new sponsor, and we got one in Skylight Frames. Choose from the following, frames anywhere. You can go get these, and they're so awesome. If you want to celebrate with and stay connected to people who are far away, you're missing someone this holiday season, you want them to be a part of the festivities from afar. Do you love people who are far away from you? Well, we've got the perfect gift for you. Skylight Frame is the touchscreen digital photo frame your whole family will love. Upload thousands of photos with your phone and watch them appear in seconds. In seconds. It's so easy to use. Setup is like 60 seconds, like that's 1 minute. Seamless sharing. Invite friends and family to share photos via the free Skylight mobile app or email. There's no account, no subscription, none of that. Add new photos straight from your phone from anywhere. It only takes a tap on your phone to send new photos to a frame across the country. It's the fastest, easiest way to keep loved ones in the loop. The touchscreen is a game changer. Swipe through photos, tap to see new photos sent, tap the heart button to say thank you to the sender, all that stuff. Satisfaction guaranteed. We're confident you'll love Skylight. We offer free 120-day returns. And now, as a special limited time offer to our listeners, get $20 off your purchase of a Skylight frame when you go to skylightframe.com/college. That's skylightframe.com/college. That's skylightframe.com/college. Get $20 off your first purchase now at skylightframe.com/college. Now let's talk FanDuel. We love FanDuel over here at Locked On Bama. We always have. Get ready to tackle NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just at FanDuel.com. That's all you got to do. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, to wrap up here today, a couple of quick basketball thoughts. First of all, big game tonight against Illinois at the BJCC. I may or may not be going. I don't know yet. If I'm there and you see me, let me know. Would love to talk to you. And big game. Illinois is ranked number 25. Alabama's still in the top 10, of course. And another basketball note, AJ Dybansta, according to some sources, it's BYU and Alabama, and it's not neck and neck. BYU's NIL offer is apparently rather large, but it's closer than the experts think, to use a Lee Corso famous line.
Yeah, he's just got to decide between – well, I mean, if he feels like Alabama's going to better prepare him for the NBA, I mean, and I can't speak for the kid. I don't know that that's true. I just know that Alabama does offer that. And I think Alabama's as good as any program right now at doing exactly that. The kid has an extremely bright NBA future. So I'm sure that's making it tough, but we'll see what happens. It's amazing that Nate Oats has put Alabama in a position to where we are such serious contenders for these elite national basketball talents, the 6 stars of the basketball world, that Alabama's even in contention for a guy like that who's not from here is unbelievable.
Yeah, and it's just a testimony to how well Nate Oats is recruiting, and Alabama's class is in the top 6, I think, according to On3. as it stands. But if they get Dybansta, I mean, it may shoot up to number one. I haven't done class calculator, but it wouldn't shock me.
I wouldn't trade it. If you add AJ, I'm not trading it for anybody else. He in and of himself, he might be the number one class. I mean, this is again, for those that don't follow it, AJ's not just this cycle's number one prospect. He would be the best prospect over several cycles.
He's incredible.
Yeah,
he's incredible.
This is a terrible comp, but he's a LeBron James type prospect. I mean, in terms of this is like he's a wow even for the number one guy.
And like we said, big game tonight out at the BJCC. I love this game. I think it's wonderful that we play a game like this at the BJCC. You know, Alabama's done it with Gonzaga and Texas, and did it with Liberty, which, you know, wasn't nuts. I mean, Liberty's they weren't a bad program. But they've done it with some really good programs. I hope that continues, and I think it will. Next year is Arizona. It was supposed to be Arizona this year. And spoiler alert, I really believe this is what happened, and I believe it because I also have a tiny bit of information that Arizona was just like, we don't want to come to Birmingham and play Alabama this year. We just don't want to do that. And, I mean, I get it, but, hey, we went to Phoenix last year, bro.
Yeah,
you know, when y'all were pretty good.
Yes.
Regardless, still a great schedule. Love playing Illinois. Got Arizona next year, and then the year after that, who knows? But this basketball program is just right where you want it to be. I know Purdue lost last night, and people were freaking out over that. But you know what? It's basketball. Deal with it. So I hope that I get out there to the BJCC tonight, and I hope I see some of you out there. And until tomorrow, roll Tide, everybody.
Roll Tide.